Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for the April district meeting. We are letting people in from the waiting room and we'll start, I think we're going to start at 6:03. So 2 more minutes, let people enter in. Our first guest is going to be Lieutenant Narrows, who's going to give us a public safety update. And he is on night duty this week and is calling in from the car, which we appreciate. He's going to keep it pretty, to the top line issues. You can always follow up with our office afterwards if you have follow-up questions. So thank you everyone for being here tonight. We've got a great lineup, and our first public speaker for our April district meeting is going to be Lieutenant Narrows. Then we're going to have greetings from Delegate Betsy Carr. We'll have a quick update on the reimagining process for George Wythe High School from Matthew Stanley. If you are from the fan, you may remember Mr. Stanley from the Fan District Association. Great to have him back. He is with RPS. Then we will get a redistricting update from our city consultant, Jerry Hebert. And I believe after that, we have a couple more agenda items. But without further ado, I think we will go ahead and get started. So Lieutenant Narrows, thank you for coming tonight. How are things looking in the district?
Ms. Jordan, thank you for having me, and greetings to everybody this evening. For those that don't know me, I am sorry that I'm going to keep this just with my photo up and not in person in the box, as we say, because I'm unfortunately still on the road. For the people that are in the Fan and Randolph or in the Uptown area, you've heard much of this before from me in our neighborhood meetings. For the rest of those folks that are joining us this evening, greetings, and if there's questions that you have specific, I'm happy to answer those offline. But I just wanted to touch kind of a high-level view of where we're at 3rd precinct-wise in crime. What we're looking at is kind of a rise. What we've had recently is a rise in violent crime. And that is certainly compared to the last 2 years that we've had. When we're looking at an overall average, using a 5 to 7 year average, we're about at or below what we typically would look at using an average. When we look at a period, we look at about a month time, 28 days. And this past period, we had 5 violent crimes in our sector specifically. And 4 violent crimes is what our average is. Where we're seeing some gains is in our property crime realm. And a lot of that has to do, I think, with neighbors being neighbors and neighborly and reminding each other, hey, look, don't leave stuff in your car. If you need me to get the package off your porch, I'll be happy to receive that. I'm at home all day, something like that. A lot of our thefts and a lot of the property crimes in and around 3rd precinct are vehicle related crimes or package thefts. A lot of deliveries from Amazon, UPS, US Mail, and whatnot. And we ask neighbors kind of be vigilant about that. You also might have heard that we've had quite a spike in an automotive part called a catalytic converter. And we've made a number of arrests in that recently, as in people are kind of rolling up underneath a car. And recently it's been Toyota Priuses cutting off the catalytic converter, which is an exhaust part. And they're usually using a battery operated tool. And then they roll right up from underneath the car and kind of walk away or drive away. It takes not even a minute to get it removed if they know what they're doing. So that, and we've had a lot of neighbors calling in saying, sounds like somebody's working on a car, or it's a strange noise, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that, coming from my neighbor's garage. And we've made some significant arrests, but honestly and unfortunately, when we make those arrests, we get another call about within an hour of a stolen catalytic converter. So we ask you neighbors and folks in your district to please be vigilant about that. Give us a ring if they see or hear something that's kind of not right in your neighborhood. Aside from that, 3rd precinct overall is kind of a match of where we're at with 313 with my sector specifically. A lot of the violent crime that we've had in 313 is related to some of the bar district areas, and then some of the crimes that we have to classify as an aggravated assault, which is one of the violent crime categories. And one of the most recent ones that we had was a disagreement, which turned into a fight on a bus, and somebody was bit in the shoulder by another person. That is classified as an aggravated assault. The human bite is an aggravated assault, so that is one of our violent crimes. And that gets rated the same, at least in number-wise, as a robbery or a shooting or something like that. So again, if there are specific questions that we can have, you can email me. And my email is david.naoroz, and that last name is Naoroz @rva.gov. And I'm happy to kind of go offline with you. If not, I know that Ms. Jordan and the office there will happily get questions over to me if there's something specific.
Great, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Again, please, feel free, Second District, to reach out directly to your RPD liaison, Lieutenant Naoroz. You can also submit questions to our office or concerns that we can relay or try to get addressed for you. At this point, I would like to introduce Delegate Betsy Carr. Lieutenant Naoroz, thank you for stopping by on your shift, and appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Delegate Carr, thank you for stopping by this evening. How are you? And
thank you,
and what's the news?
Gordon. Great to be with all of you. You've probably seen we'll have a reconvene session next Wednesday, and we'll be looking at some of the bills that were held over in conference. We will also be looking at the governor's amendments, vetoes, and so forth. In addition, you probably read in the paper where there was a finance committee meeting yesterday on the governor's gas tax bill, and that was referred to the appropriation. So don't know what that will, how that will come out. I know that there's the statement from the Senate that they want to have the rebate, the $50 rebate, because they think that that's more effective, getting money into people's pockets right away, not the trickle down effect from the big companies. Also, of course, the big thing that we're waiting on and hoping for is the budget. Now, you kind of pays your money and he takes your choice on which rumors you take about whether we'll be meeting in June, or whether possibly there will be a session on the 28th that we'll be voting on. But we do know one thing: we will definitely have a budget before the end of June, and a lot of us are hoping that that's sooner rather than later. Those are kind of the big things on the General Assembly. If anybody has any questions, please stay in touch with me, let me know. Also be delighted to include any of you on our email updates. We have a lot of people that say that has helpful, useful information. So I want to get that information to anybody that wants it, but also to talk to you, or if you have any emails or anything, please stay in touch with me. It's delegate.carr@betsycarr.org. And my cell phone is 804-986-6852. I would like to follow up on what our lieutenant said about the catalytic converters. We did have a bill that was passed, and hopefully this has created another level of offense. And so hopefully this will be a deterrent, as well as some things in place for the metal recyclers that take these catalytic converters. So that was something that we passed. I was happy to co-patron both the Senate and the House bills for that. And I know some folks in the area have been concerned about the loud exhaust noises that have come about, and I'm happy to say that we got something passed, and that'll go into effect July. I don't think it'll take care of every single thing, but I think it will go a far way to quieting our streets. I know people in our neighborhoods have said oh, we've got elderly folks, we've got people with PDST, and people, it's just middle of the night, loud noises going off. That's just not the way we want our quality of life to be. So I'm happy that those couple of things that I've heard from in the district will have some remedies for. But again, please stay in touch with me. Anything I can do to be helpful, and appreciate being with you tonight.
Thank you so much, Delegate Carr. And Sven dropped your newsletter sign up in the chat for anyone who's looking for it.
Great, thank you.
All right, we are moving along at a blistering speed here.
And Councilwoman, if you don't mind, Julie, I believe, asks Delegate Carr, what do you think was the most significant action in this year's General Assembly for?
Well, that's interesting. I was on a panel today and I said one thing, I think there are probably several things, but one thing was kind of the educational literacy and making it so that it's going to make a difference for our young children who are educated and can read at an earlier age. I know that was something that Senator McClellan and Delegate Coiner worked together on. So I think that's really important for the young people in our city. Also, there was a bill that we passed that probably wasn't as sexy looking on the outside, but very happy that, affordable housing is a big issue all across the state and particularly in Richmond. And what we've done is the places that have redevelopment groups, they are not, the IDAs and the EDAs, the economic and the industrial development associations are not able to, do new housing and so forth. But with this bill, they will be allowed to. So that will give incentive to our private developers and so forth to have more affordable housing. So we're excited about that. So I think there are two kind of key issues that will make a difference in our city. Although, there are lots of little things. I mean, not little things. Whoever is involved, if you're involved in it, it's not little for you. But, I think that those two things, kind of affordable housing and education, are really crucial for our area.
Absolutely. Well, thank
And then,
you
of
so
course,
much.
the biggest thing will be the budget. We're getting that passed. That will make a big impact on our city.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And Matthew Stanley has put some links to more information about those bills in the chat.
Thank you.
But again, thank you for stopping by. We appreciate your hard work on behalf of our area. And we know it's a little bit different right now, but appreciate the results you're getting for your constituents.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Matthew Stanley now. He is with RPS, formerly with the Fan District Association. If you hopped on late and didn't hear me reference that. Matthew, I think you have an update about reimagining George Wythe.
That's right. Thank you, Councilman Jordan. Again, everybody, I'm Matthew Stanley. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Outreach at Richmond Public Schools, former president of the Fan District Association. So I feel very pleased to be back in good company tonight. Yes, I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about George Wythe High School. As most folks in the city know, we are planning to build a new George Wythe High School. And one of the critical decisions that we are at the stage of needing to make in the design and planning process is what type of theme the high school is going to have. We have our division-wide strategic plan, Dreams for RPS, and then within that strategic plan, we have a significant focus on exciting and rigorous teaching and learning. And one of the aspects of that is a passion for learning, and we have a whole plan called Passion for Learning that talks about theming our schools at the middle and high school levels to have specific topics, be they arts and STEM or government and policy, international studies, immersion programs in foreign languages. And so we've started doing some of that work. This past year, we launched our 2 STEM academies at our middle school level at MLK Middle School as well as Henderson Middle School. And now with the construction of a new George Wythe High School, we're really excited to bring another theme into the fold. And so we've started with 2 themes that we are asking the community for their input on. One is STEM, which if you're not familiar with what STEM stands for, it does not stand for stem cell research. Some people get confused about that, but it stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. And then the other theme would be arts, and that's all kinds of arts, performing arts, visual arts, you name it. And so I dropped a link in the chat for everybody, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show you all a little bit about how we're engaging the community in this process. If you hop over to this George Wythe Reimagined webpage, we have a lot of information here for you. We have an online thought catcher, which brings up this form, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We also have these sample course catalogs where we have actually kind of tried to imagine what would it be like if a student was picking out their courses for the next year. What courses would they have to choose from? There's some really cool essays in here that we wrote that kind of give an example of, you know, what a student in that type of program, what types of opportunities would they have. This one, it's an internship for course credit with the Richmond Performing Arts Alliance. And so we're asking folks in a lot of our in-person sessions, we're doing a lot of small group discussion, a lot of personal reflections, and folks are going through those course catalogs and saying, you know, what's standing out to me? What are the things that I really like about these two options? And then what are the things that I think RPS needs to think about as you make this decision? Ultimately, we are asking people to help us make a decision and pick one or the other. We do have to pick one or the other. It's that concept of you can't necessarily be the master of all trades. We want to specialize in one thing and do it really well. And of course, we do have limited resources here in the city. So we want to be able to pour those resources into one area and just do that one area really awesome. So again, what we're asking folks for is to engage with us. We have a bunch of in-person meetings where the discussion that I'm having tonight in 10 minutes is actually a full hour-long discussion. We're about to be publishing a few more meetings over the coming weeks. There's a couple upcoming ones that are in here. I think we've even got some tonight, but a few new ones this week, or I guess starting next, or one tomorrow, and then a few more next week. And then we also would love for folks to fill out this thought catcher where this orange button is. And it's a very simple Google form, and we have some basic demographic information, but then we do ask you really all the same questions that we're asking folks when we have those in-person meetings. We also have some recordings of the in-person meetings on our YouTube channel. So if you're kind of wondering like, well, how are they doing this in person? You can go watch that live stream, and we actually have the moderator coming and talking to the camera during that. So you get a good idea for how those are going and what types of questions we're having discussed. So with that, I'm gonna close my screen share so I can see folks again. And if anybody does have any comments that you want to drop in the chat that I can log and take back as part of all of the feedback that we're collecting, I would love that. I'm welcome to, I don't know if we're doing kind of unmuting tonight or folks talking, but I would welcome any feedback that you have tonight. And then you have a few more weeks to fill out that online thought catcher or attend one of our upcoming engagement sessions. So
Matthew,
that
thank you
kind of,
so
yeah,
much.
of course, please go ahead.
Yeah, that was really helpful. I hadn't heard this yet. I mean, heard of it, but it's great to hear your presentation, even in a quick format. So for either of these paths, anyone could apply to be a George Wythe student, regardless of where you're zoned. Is that the idea?
So we will definitely have some form of an application process. We don't know yet whether that will be through our open enrollment lottery or whether this would be kind of classified as a specialty school with a different application process. Those things will start to be hammered out in the next phases of this process. We have to go ahead and make this key decision now on which theme it is because that impacts the facility design.
Okay, so I have a question in the chat, and then I'm going to read that one and then let you know what my next question is. So in the chat, Julie was asking, currently, do any of the other schools, high schools, have either STEM or arts focus?
Yeah,
And
great
then
question.
after you answer that, if you could just give an update on where we are with River City rezoning and how that could affect Benford in second district. Thank you.
Absolutely. So question of, do any of our other schools have either a STEM or arts focus? So I did mention that we do have 2 middle schools right now that have a STEM focus. And then I know that we also have a turnaround arts program at Benford Middle School. Those are the only STEM and art specific programs that I'm aware of. I know we have some additional art support at a few of our schools, but I think Benford is the primary one that at the middle school level that's themed. At the high school level, we do not have any themes at any of those schools, except we do have the International Baccalaureate program at Thomas Jefferson High School. And then of course we do have our specialty schools, Community High School, Open High School, and Franklin Military Academy, which each have their very kind of unique approaches to their school community. So I hope that answered that question. Always happy to take any more. And then to talk a little bit about River City, let me go ahead and pop up the website that we have for River City. And let me share my screen again real quick. Okay, and if everybody can see that, this is a page on our website that talks about the River City Middle School rezoning process. It's under the Students and Families menu right here, and you see it right there. What I want to do is I want to pull up the latest presentation, and I think this should be, yep, this is it. Let me just double check. Actually, I apologize, that one. Oh, and sorry, folks. It looks like that may be an older one, and I want to make sure that y'all have the most current one. I'm going to pull up the presentation that's in our school board system. Here we go. Okay, so here's the proposal that was submitted to our school board. Let me drop this link in the chat in case anybody would like to see that. And let me get down to the final map options. Okay, so if you look at this map, this shows the current River City Middle School zone, and it shows some of the different neighborhoods that have been identified to possibly go to a different school zone. And if I'm not mistaken, there is this one zone of Southside, the Woodland Heights neighborhood, actually where I live. And that's the section that would actually go to Benford Middle School. Benford is still significantly under its capacity, under enrolled to its capacity. So we have some good capacity to move some students over to Benford Middle School. And of course, it's just a quick trip across the Boulevard Bridge for students to get over there. But if there's any further questions about the rezoning of River City Middle School and any other shifts to Benford, please let me know. The school board will be hearing the second read of this proposal on this coming Monday, and so we do expect a vote very soon.
Got it. Thank you so much. All right, terrific. Let me just check the chat real fast. Okay, great. Okay, a quick follow-up question on George Wythe from Ansley. Ansley, if you'd like to unmute or put your question in the chat. And then I'm gonna let Sven.
Thanks, Kat.
There you go, great.
Sorry, Catherine. Matthew, can you elaborate on how we landed on kind of the binary choices between STEM and arts for GW versus other options?
Yep, we've definitely heard a little bit of feedback that some folks have felt like they would have liked to have been involved in the process of making that first decision of what are our options. So that's really feedback that we've taken into consideration as we have any future discussions about further programs. Soon we're going to be talking about our Career and Technical Education Center, and we're going to make sure that we start with the community a little bit earlier. As far as I don't know the specific way that those two options were decided on. That was kind of information that was just passed down to us that those were going to be the two ideas that we were engaging the community on. But I do know that those were two of the options that were named in that Passion for Learning plan that looks to theme all of our schools. So I don't know why those two were chosen for George Wythe at this point in time, but I do know that those two themes bore within kind of a group of a few additional themes that have been on the table for some time.
Great, thank you so much. And then I'll provide a quick update on Fox and Clark Springs. RPS has been working incredibly hard to get Clark Springs up to capacity, resolve leaks that were coming out of the roof, do the mold testing and remediation, paint everything, get supplies in, etc. So they've been doing tours this week for staff, for the PTA, for Principal Jacobs, obviously. And then this evening, Mariah and I went along with school board member Rizzi and Jonathan Young, and there was some media present as well, because once they had that many school board members, they had to make it a public event. But I was incredibly encouraged by what I saw at Clark Springs, both inside and outside. And I know this has been such a trying experience for everybody. I just hope we can find encouragement in the remarkable job that our RPS staff and volunteers have done, because it's really, I get emotional every once in a while when I let myself, feel the weight of what everyone's been through and what everyone is able to pull off. So just excited to say that Clark Springs looks really good. They've added speed bumps on the roads outside. So I think parents will have I think they should feel confident if that's the decision that the staff and the parents decide they want to do, go ahead and move now instead of waiting until next year. I think that could be a really solid choice. And I think having seen it myself, that's probably what I would choose. And I know the superintendent at the last Fox meeting said that they would figure out aftercare, extended day. And I know that's a huge component for families that are struggling with childcare right now, which is not provided at First Baptist. As wonderful as they are, they could not provide that. Mariah sends her greetings. She is at another school event. She couldn't make it this evening. And then there had been some delays and back and forth on getting the Fox building permits for the stabilization to planning in the format that they needed to be. Obviously, it's really difficult to drive by Fox and see no progress. But what we don't want to do is rush to get a plan approved that's not safe, that's not thorough, and go from having, I think there were some minor injuries from the firefighters just, from overexertion. But we do not want to put people in an unsafe condition as they work to stabilize and rehabilitate the building. So I think there will be some really positive news about the permits being approved from planning. We need fire to still sign off and allow RPS to go in and start the work with their contractors, but things are moving forward. So that's all very positive. And again, thank you. Matthew, please relay our deep gratitude for everyone involved in this. And I know we're all eager for families to be back at Hanover Avenue.
Yeah, and I think I understand we had good news today and that the stabilization permit was approved.
Yes, so that is official. And now we're just waiting for the written final stamp from fire department saying, yes, RPS, now that you have your approved plans, you can come in, because the site is still under fire control. But thank you for confirming that. Very good news. So we are almost at 6:30. We have several presenters left. Matthew, thank you for being here. If anyone has follow-up RPS questions, feel free to reach out to our office and we will relay them on your behalf. Matthew has also put his email address in contact information in the chat. And I will say Monday is when we expect the school board to vote on whether or not students will go to Clark Springs this year or wait till next year. So that vote is imminent, but it's going to be based on student and family and teacher feedback. All right, at this juncture, I'm going to hand it over to Sven to introduce our redistricting consultant to give us an update on where we stand on the city's redistricting process. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. And thank you all. Thank you, Matt, for being here tonight. And thank you to Jerry Hebert, our incredibly hardworking redistricting consultant. I know that because he's had to put up with a number of calls from our office, a number of evening meetings, lots of public engagement and feedback in the redistricting process over the last number of months. And we are nearing the end of that process, but it is not over. And there is public feedback that can still be incorporated into the new voting districts that we will have for the next decade for council and school board and for mayor. And so, Jerry, if you are on with us, if you want to share a little bit about where we are in that process and how folks can still get engaged with that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Sure, and I'll be very brief. But Councilwoman Jordan, thank you for inviting me to speak, and Sven, you as well. So just to recap a little bit, this process has now been going on for 7 months. It began last October when we first held a public meeting regarding what criteria and a timeline would be followed. And it was determined that we would incorporate as much public involvement as possible. And I will say that Councilwoman Jordan played a very active role in getting the council together, all of them together, to decide that they really wanted to have a lot of public meetings and public opportunities. And the city of Richmond decided to do something. You know, I've been doing redistricting law now for 6 decades. And they did something that I don't really recall ever being done before. They decided to draw maps in public, not behind closed doors, not in a smoke-filled room where nobody could see what was going on, but actually to have a map drawer actually move lines at the request of both members of the council as well as members of the public, saying, well, what if you move the line from here to there? There were 6 such sessions, public sessions, held in February alone, and a number of map drawing sessions during that 1-month period. And there were other hearings held in January, and of course, then we had some in March, and now here we are in April. On March 7th, finally, after all those map drawing sessions I mentioned, the council decided to put a map up for public comment. It was a proposed demonstration map. It wasn't the final map. It said, look, based on all the public comment we've received, here is a map that seems to incorporate a lot of that and follows the criteria that we adopted, which is to comply with, of course, the federal law and the state law, and not to split precincts so voters aren't confused about what ballot they're going to get. And also to keep together communities of interest to the extent it's possible to do that. And so they put a map out on March the 7th. They put that map up for public comment. Now, under state law, you're supposed to put a map up for 30 days of public comment. Well, the city decided that it wanted to give more opportunity than 30 days. So it said, we're not going to close public comment until Monday, April 25th. That's about 49 days from the date that they put the plan out. So they gave an extra almost 3 weeks. And comments have been coming in, and that's a good thing. But as Sven mentioned a moment ago, the final hearing, public hearing and comment period really ends this coming Monday. So you can participate at that if you wish. Sven has put some links in the chat, I see, for the plan itself. And what happens next is after the final day for public comment closes, there will come a time in May when the city council will adopt a redistricting ordinance incorporating those districts that have been agreed upon. That will be the final plan, and that is set out in as a final vote. There's a public hearing held. They'll explain why they're voting the way they are, or why they believe the plan is the best for the city. That will likely take place on May 23rd, which is the date that has been announced previously under our schedule. And then if and when that plan is finally adopted on May 23rd, it takes effect 30 days later on June 22nd. So that's where we stand today. I will say that, and I want to really underscore this, members of the city council, including Council Member Jordan, have been really engaged, and even more importantly, have gotten their constituents engaged in this process, so that there's full transparency, which is really remarkable and different, I think, than you've seen in other cities and counties where the time period is short for people to comment, or the map is drawn and saying, this is the map we've drawn. There's no public input. The opposite has happened in the city, and I'm happy to have been a part of it, a small part of it so far. Councilwoman Jordan, thank you again for the opportunity, and Sven for the opportunity to speak.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, Jerry. And you did mention that the feedback is still coming in. Have you gotten feedback from Jackson Ward? I know that concern has been raised several times about them being now, I think, the only neighborhood community of interest being split into 3 different council districts.
Right there, we had a lot of public comment, as you'll recall, during the public hearings we held about that. There were a number of people who brought that up. We have tried to address that in map 2C, which I think is the map that was selected for public comment. There really hasn't been a lot of public comment about that particular issue in the written comments that have been submitted. I do think that, we have to also be aware that there are House of Delegate lines as well as state Senate lines that also govern a little bit what we can and can't do, because we don't want to end up, splitting a precinct here and there as a result of those lines. But we tried to address that community of interest as best we can. So please, look on the city's website. There's a whole redistricting place there where you can log in comments or ask questions, and we'll try to address those at the public hearing on Monday, and even all the way up until the time the final map's adopted on May 23rd.
Okay, thank you. And then just a practical question. So comments that are coming in, I mean, are we still in the phase of the project where the map will get reshaped? Or is this for council to take the comments that we've heard and decide whether or not we need to make another change to the map
It's
or
the
adopt
latter.
it?
It's really the latter.
Okay.
You have a map that has incorporated a lot of public comment. I mean, to my knowledge, can't think of anybody who's raised a comment or a suggestion that we haven't tried to address. There are a couple of issues that we simply can't. There was a block involving, I think, council member is on the south side. There's one block that really should go into another district, but it can't because the Senate map split that right along that same area, so we can't move that one block. But other than those really parochial, minute points, which are important to people, but sometimes it just can't be done. But yes, you can take comments now from people, and you could say, well, let's see if we move the map this way, what it would look like. That's their, and you can do that right up until the time the final map is adopted.
Okay, thank you. And I just also want to extend gratitude for Sven Phillipson, who has worked really hard on this process and was one of the early and very vocal advocates for making sure we do this as transparently as possible. And I love his enthusiasm for this exercise because it's incredibly important.
I agree.
And, as we all know, I think we've had a very robust, very transparent, very extended public process, but there are going to be people who only tune in when it's up for vote. So if you're listening, you still have questions or concerns, I still want to hear them. So thank you for being here tonight, Jerry. Does anyone have a question about redistricting, or are we ready to move on to our next presentation? Feel free to raise your hand.
And I'll just highlight for folks that there are a couple links in there. If you want sort of the high level overview of the whole process to date, that first link is going to be a good resource. The second one to understand where we are with the final draft map that council will be considering on Monday. And the third link, if you want to take a look at all the different various iterations of the maps that council has deliberated on. And again, thank you, Jerry, for all your help along the way.
Okay, thank you again.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. I want to welcome Cheryl Hampton. Have you been to our district meetings yet?
I have, yes. And thank you so much, Councilwoman Jordan. I have been out to Sherwood Park, met with some of the other neighborhoods, Ginter Park and some of the others, and to one of your earlier district meetings. So thank you for having me back. Let me say good evening to everyone. My name is Cheryl Hampton, and I'm the Director for Housing and Community Development with the City of Richmond. As it relates to the inclement weather shelter and the non-congregate shelter, I'm here to provide an update on those items. I will say that the city was not the entity that funded the non-congregate shelter. I'm not sure if Jay Brown, the Executive Director of Commonwealth Catholic Charities, is here, but he has been the community partner, or one of them, or the main community partner, working with the city on the inclement weather shelter. CCC took over the non-congregate shelter, which is a hotel out on Midlothian, from the Homeward, the GRCOC. All of that came about during COVID, and when they phased out in July of last year, CCC took over the non-congregate. That shelter is funded by the state, the Commonwealth, and will close on April 22nd. The inclement weather shelter, which was funded by the city, and you've heard me say before, it's really a two-parter. The temporary location was the Quality Inn there on Arthur Ashe. That closed on April 15th, as it would. The ordinance lists out that date of April 15th, and that's when the inclement weather shelter closed, the temporary location. The city also funded renovations of 809 Oliver Hill Way, which is CCC's permanent location. And that is where later this year, starting in November, the inclement weather shelter will move to its more permanent home, at least over the next 3 years. So that is the upcoming site for the inclement weather shelter. I understand Councilwoman Jordan has been very instrumental in staying on top of the matter, as she wanted to mitigate any negative impacts. And first, before I go into that, I just want to thank all of the neighborhoods. I joined to being such a welcoming neighbor to the inclement weather shelter. We had a cleanup. I was out for that and met many more wonderful residents. And so look forward to participating in other such events, whether we have a shelter going on or not. Now, to go back to that, the inclement weather shelter was not open all day. It opened in the evenings. So therefore, if folks have nowhere to go, some of them will linger. And we understand that happened. But there are other partners besides CCC that joined in the effort, that provided street outreach and other assistance and case management to the participants at the shelter when it was open and running. Also, this is a multi-departmental initiative. So while my department of the city works to oversee the funding, DHS and Ms. Diane Wilmore works with the Hope Unit of the City Police Department. And as I said, DHS also works. So I'm not sure if Diane is on the call, but I know Councilwoman Jordan has also been in touch with her, and she will be providing any additional update from a people perspective. Now, to the closing of both of these shelters, the GRCOC, which is the Greater Richmond Continuum of Care, has been working diligently with Commonwealth Catholic Charities to have a plan of action. The city supports them. And I want to say again, the city does not run a homeless program. The city is one partial funder of that. And we thank Henrico County because they did provide some funding for the inclement weather shelter. The city, I sit on the board of GRCOC, but we are but one member because it is a regional approach. So what's being done to help the families after that closing? So with the inclement weather shelter, there are 12 other shelters that operate year-round. So they have been working with Commonwealth Catholic Charities. And for the non-congregate shelter, they're also working, but those families receive case management, and every family there, according to Commonwealth Catholic Charity, has a plan of action. So even when the council sought to receive more information, those households went from 58 all the way and keep being reduced every year because they are looking at diversion tactics. They are looking at other implementing those plans, those individual plans of those families. So there is a plan of action to help them. Councilwoman Jordan, along with the other members of council, have asked the city what else we can do. And it all becomes a budgetary matter, which the council is now undertaking its budget and looking forward to passing a budget. So again, it's a multi-departmental approach along with our community partners collaborating with us to continue to provide services to the individuals that were served by both of those shelters. I'll stop now, Councilwoman Jordan, if I've missed anything that you wanted me to speak on, or if there are questions. Again, I'm always happy to be with you. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Yes, no, Ms. Hampton, so thrilled that you're here. You have been great about going out into the community. And I think we've been together at neighborhood association meetings.
Yes.
But I'm not sure if you've been on a district-wide one.
Yep.
And I just really want to underscore when Ms. Hampton says multi-departmental, multi-agency, I mean, there are so many individuals involved in trying to help our unhoused neighbors. And, you know, you may drive by and see someone on the side of the street. Let me tell you, there are so many people trying to connect that person to services and resources and shelter. And I know that the first round at the Quality Inn during COVID was trying, both for the people there trying to get services and be safe, and for the surrounding community. Ms. Hampton and Commonwealth Catholic Charities, I think, really, 100% effort to be better partners with the community for the inclement weather shelter. It's a very difficult situation, and you have people who don't necessarily always want help. But I want to highlight, I did get a good update from Ms. Wilmore, who is our homeless liaison for the city. I want you to think of, over the course of the inclement weather shelter, they helped over 1,100 individuals. 1,100 different individuals came through the cold weather shelter. The nightly average was 118. So I serve on the Education Human Services Committee. Stephanie Lynch, 5th District Council member, is the chair. As these closing dates approached, we, continually asked, what is the city's plan? We want to make sure people understood the closing date was coming. We're connected with transition resources. And we had, I think, a very positive and encouraging report at our committee meeting from Commonwealth Catholic Charities that they believe by the end of April, they will have housing and transition plans for everyone who's been at the non-congregate shelter. So that's the one south of the river. And for the one north of the river, which closed on the 15th, there was a kind of a rough transition period of the folks who were trying to take up residency outside. And living underneath an underpass or in the bushes next to an exit ramp off a highway, that is not a good situation for anybody. And I really applaud the care and compassion that our local partners and our human services and social workers extended. I get emails with, I talked to so-and-so today, and he has a housing voucher. We're connecting him with a place he can use that voucher. So it's, again, multi-departmental. There are so many people working on this. I do think, Richmond doesn't always get good headlines on this, but I think if people really understood the scale of the problem, the complexities of it, and how many people really are trying to get our neighbors who are in a tough situation connected to the help they need, I think people would be really impressed. So thank you for all the good work that you do, Ms. Hampton. And we brought up Ms. Wilmore earlier. She is primarily in our Richmond Public Library system. And that is, it's so much more than books. People go to libraries for all types of things. It might be the only place they can fill out a job application. It may be where they can figure out, housing, how to get their finances in order, et cetera. So I think it's no surprise that our best advocate for the unhoused is someone in our public library system. And with that, I'm going to transition to our budget discussion, unless anyone has a follow-up question, because I want to talk about some of the resources I'm trying to get towards Ms. Wilmore. If not, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to pass them on. Education Human Services is a really good committee to follow if these are issues that you're passionate about. And again, thank you so much, Ms. Hampton, for extending your workday even longer than it already is.
No problem. Thank you so much.
Okay, great. Take care. Thank you. All right. So Sven has reminded me by text that actually, before I go, we've got another presenter. And Ms. Hampton, are you still online or is, okay.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, great. We did have a question. So in code, our inclement weather shelter is, November to April. We thought we had a solution for a year-round shelter. Commonwealth Charities is working on that shelter. Supply chain situations, setbacks on the project have delayed it. But what are the shelter options until that permanent year-round inclement shelter is online?
Well, we have 12 shelters in the city. Caritas, I'm going to see if I can get them all. We just have a list. It was in your packet that we gave, but I can share that again with Finn, and it shows where they're located in the city on that map. While the city does not fund all of them are members of the GRCOC. So they are looking, those shelters will take in or serve as many as they can based on their occupancy standards. So we will do that. Right now, I know that throughout the year, there may be some cooling stations. I just had a conversation with another shelter that's operated on Hull, and they have other property. So we're looking to see if in an inclement weather or an emergency situation, they would be willing to work with the city. But we are hoping and praying on knowing how the supply chain is that we can open between November and December later this year and have that 24/7 shelter going. But within the shelter network, they are diverting, they are providing housing, and they're doing case management and working. And even our community had some emergency vouchers. So the GRCOC is working with the Housing Authority, Richmond Housing Authority, to get those emergency vouchers as applicable for folks to be able to use those. So there are a number, all of that is working together. I understand that DHS has also looked at the potential for some direct assistance, but ladies and gentlemen, we need units. We need units. So there is a severe shortage of units. So we encourage, if you work with landlords, please encourage them. My team and I and senior administration at the city are looking at incentives for ways that we can incentivize landlords working in the program. But we have a severe shortage of units. And so we need units and we need continued case management and mental health. And all of those things come with a price tag. So.
And Ms. Hampton, I believe that there was a follow-up question, which is from Paige as well. Will the Clarion, which I think is also the Quality Inn, be used as a shelter during the summer?
And I get my names of my hotels. So is it the one on Arthur Ashe or the other? The one on Arthur Ashe? I do not believe that is the case, but I have not talked with Jay as a provider, they would have to have a contract. I don't believe that is the case. I may be in error, but we can certainly follow up and let Councilwoman Jordan's office know. The city, as far as I know now, has no plans to use that during the summer. But we can never say never. We don't know what will come. We hope there are good things. We understand some of the challenges that existed, but I think it was a step up from when we were previously at Annie Giles. So I was happy that we could provide the service. I am thankful to the surrounding communities. And we always look for ways to improve or enhance how the strategies that we implement. So we are looking at those. We are not blind to the issues. And we're trying, it is a very deep issue to solve. That's going to take more than just one opening another inclement weather shelter. So we're looking at it from all angles. I'd love to do a tiny home village. I'd love to do and to have that. You need land to do that. You need a space. You have to provide water and sewer facilities. So we're looking at all of those things. We need more permanent supportive housing units. And so those are the things we need. And thankful for Delegate Carr. And I believe that was what, House Bill 1194, that could give us free up some tax exemptions for allowed jurisdictions to do that, to incentivize our developers to build more units or to work with us on master leasing. So it's a number of things, looking at a local voucher, just a number of things. But we live in the great Commonwealth, and our enabling legislation comes from the great Commonwealth. If they don't tell us we can do it, we can't do it. So we are happy to work with champions like Delegate Carr for moving innovation and creativity in affordable housing.
Yes, thank you. Well, I just want to note that I have not heard anything from Commonwealth Catholic Charities that they want to return to the Quality Inn. They were as frustrated with, I think, that arrangement as the neighbors, and there were a lot of things that it did not live up to anyone's expectations. So no, I do not anticipate that use returning to that hotel, that provider. But thank you for that clarification. And let's have this be the last question on this topic, because we have one more presenter. Ansley asked, how is the shortage in intake response being addressed for all these shelters in the interim? And that was something that Councilmember Lynch brought up in our last Education Human Services Committee as well. Just the struggle to help connect folks. And where is the point of entry when you don't have a permanent shelter?
Okay, the point of entry for any unhoused person or person in threat of losing their housing is the Homeless Connection line. And so it is open until 9 p.m. and it's open on Saturdays and Sundays. So that is the place to start. That's the coordinated entry that HUD requires. So you start there. When you start there, depending on where you are in that prioritization, if you have a roof over your head right now, you may not be put before someone that is living on the street or just got evicted or just whatever. So there is an order to how they provide assistance, but they look at whether they can divert you. And what does that mean? Can they go to a family or other housing? They look at all of the availabilities through all 12 of those shelters, and they go there. Or is it a voucher that they could give for a couple of days stay in another hotel or a hotel? So they look at a number of strategies to mitigate and alleviate homelessness. And that network That's the network that's working with CCC to those folks. But every person coming out of the non-congregate, as you said, Councilwoman Jordan, should have that transition plan and that plan of action that they know where they can go. Now, I don't say they want to go, but know where they can go to not be on the streets. But I also want to say to this group, sometimes folks have mental health issues or other issues that they may not want to go, and we cannot make them go. We can offer the help and offer the assistance. But I believe most folks would choose a home and a place to call home before being back on the street. But we've had people living on, your chronically homeless has been on the street much longer than a year. Some has been out 5, some may be 10 years. And so we're combating a number of illnesses, be it emotional or physical. And so those are the things that the people in the field look at. And that's why mental health and other resources are so important. But the network is working to take them in, and they do have case managers and a transition plan.
Thank you so much. And I will say, just back to the individuals who were outside of the inclement weather shelter after it closed, our local partners and social service workers were able to each day they went out, built trust, and they've been working on this for the weeks before the shelter closed, and they were able to find transition plans, for 20 of the people, I think on Friday. So every day it's a challenge, but every day there are people out there working really hard on this. So appreciate you. And Layton, did you have a question? If you'd like to unmute.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is there a phone number that's available 24/7 every day of the year, that if you run into somebody who says, I need help, we can help make calls for people?
Yeah, it is not 24/7. It ends at 9. And I think Sven put up, I can't remember the number by heart. I had it, but I have a lot of other things in my head for today. But he put up the Homeless Connection line. It does run until 9 p.m. And it's on Saturdays and Sundays as well. I think the weekend is 1 to 9.
What about holidays?
They should be open throughout. I'm not sure, but I know the Homeless Connection line, if you go to this site that Sven put up for us, and thank you, Sven, you will see it. He just put the number up.
Thank you.
But I think there's a different number too. But if you Google that, you'll see what that line is, and it will tell you when they're open and their hours.
And then Sven, will you also add Diane Wilmore's contact information? So if you encounter someone, on the street that you think needs to be connected to our homeless liaison person, you can also reach out to Diane. We got contacted recently about, a gentleman in Carver, and she went out, established rapport, and that's how you can help. You can reach out to our partners, to our city, to provide this, do what we can if they're willing to take the help. But we do have another presenter. So Ms. Hampton, thank you so much. If anyone has other follow-up questions, feel free to send them to our office. Thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to turn it over to David Sale, who is in the Office of Sustainability for the city, to give us the great news that the draft of the RVA Green 2050 plan is out. So David, if you want to give us just a couple of highlights and how people can interact and what those deadlines are for public feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm impressed with all my fellow speakers for presenting without a PowerPoint. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen and just run through a few things really quickly, if that's okay.
Definitely go for it.
All right, are you able to see everything okay?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So yes, like Councilmember Jordan mentioned, we recently announced the launch of our first climate equity action plan. to get us to the year 2030 and reduce Richmond's greenhouse gas emissions while preparing communities for the impacts of climate change. And so, as we know, a lot of communities in Richmond are already seeing climate change happen to them, whether it is more extreme heat and higher average temperatures, more flooding due to severe storms, or earlier pollen seasons, which can exacerbate allergies and other health impacts. And so we're already seeing this today. And so RVA Green 2050 as a whole initiative really looks at how to center equity while also addressing climate action, which is reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and climate resilience, which is helping communities prepare for the impacts of climate change. And it centers equity because we know that not all Richmonders experience climate change in the same way. And there are a lot of factors that go into that, root causes such as racial segregation and poverty, as well as social and biological factors like health or access to green space. And so all these different factors play together to increase an individual or community sensitivity to climate change. And that's really what RVA Green 2050 aims to address throughout its planning efforts. And so in Richmond, we know that looks like a lot of different things, but really comes down to race in a lot of cases. And so neighborhoods with more Black or Hispanic and Latino residents or lower income populations, are more likely to have less green space, which can exacerbate health illnesses. They may have lower access to energy efficient homes, which can drive up energy bills, which are already disproportionately high. Or they can live in neighborhoods that maybe are less connected via bus or safe walking and biking routes, which segregate them from amenities or good jobs. And so throughout Richmond, we see this happening over and over in different neighborhoods and want to address this through our plan, which leads us to the great news that earlier this week, Mayor LeVar Stoney announced that this next phase of RVA Green 2050 was live with our Climate Equity Action Plan, which will aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 45% by 2030. And so this plan really centers 7 community priorities that we heard from Richmonders during our community listening sessions across all of the 49 strategies that we propose. And so this includes things like well-paying jobs, affordable housing, better health, and cleaner and more beautiful neighborhoods. And so our goal is really to make sure that every Richmonder can see their own priorities reflected in a climate plan like this. And so to get here, we assembled a racial equity and environmental justice roundtable, which is a group of residents who were paid for their time and their expertise to sort of guide the process and make sure that those community priorities were centered throughout. As our topical experts provided their ideas around reducing greenhouse gases and increasing resilience. And so what that looks like in practice is just a quick example is, we heard affordable housing is a huge priority for a lot of Richmonders. So we asked our roundtable and our working group members, how can we continue to address affordable housing while also seeking to reduce emissions or seeking to make neighborhoods more resilient? And so that led to strategies like better access to renewable energy, weatherization for homes to help keep energy bills low and things like that. And so across the entire planning process, we were continually asking ourselves these questions. And with this climate equity plan, are advancing 49 strategies across 5 pathways that continue to honor those 7 community priorities. And just as a quick example of some strategies that are in this plan, you can see that they range from things like more renewable energy to increasing access to community grants for funding our community partners' great work in their own neighborhoods, to things like electric vehicle charging networks and access to residential composting. And so the plan touches on a lot of different areas of climate action, equity, and resilience. And so as part of this next phase of the process, we really would love to hear the community's input on the draft plan. So sort of through the end of the summer, we'll be working on finalizing the plan, taking into account all the input and feedback from the community, and finalizing it before we present to City Council for hopeful adoption this fall. And so if you are interested in getting involved or staying involved, there are a couple of things you can do. Signing up for our newsletter is the best way to get information on ways to engage moving forward. You can always help us spread the word by asking for materials or staff support at your upcoming meetings or community events, and we'll be happy to get you sort of what you need. The entire plan, it is a bit lengthy, but it is available online for you to comment on directly. at our website, and the link is there at the bottom. And then finally, we'd love it if you could take our community sustainability survey, which we're running for the first time this year and hopefully every year, just to make sure as we implement these strategies, the implementation strategy continues to be reflective of the changing needs of the community, since we are at the core community-centered plan. And so I thank you all for your time. That's my email. If you have any questions or want to reach out to connect further, I'm always happy to talk, and can also take any quick questions now if you'd like.
Councilwoman, I believe you are on mute, but
Yeah.
David, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
got it.
Yeah,
Yes, thank
and-
you so much, David. And, you know, it's exciting to see the culmination of this. I remember when the mayor announced the beginning of this plan, and I know folks have been on working groups, so excited to see it at this stage. And please, everyone, interact with it. These plans are only as good as the participation of Richmonders. So with that, I'm going to segue quickly to a recap of where we are on the budget, and I'll let Sven close out with ranked choice voting update. And then if anyone has any questions, we can stay on a little bit longer. But so the budget, we talked a lot about, homelessness services. Diane Wilmore does an amazing job. I put in an amendment to get her another full-time staff person. It's way too much for one person to do, and she's passionate about it. I can tell she, really does this job with love, but we don't want to burn her out, and the problem's larger than any one person. So hopeful that I feel good that that'll get included. Also, when it comes to the environment, our presentation we just had, we're in a great situation where we have an administration that has recognized, acknowledged, funded the infrastructure for sustainability office, has now supported the move of that office to a more independent position within the city. So during the budget process, City Council now has the opportunity to say, all right, let's take it a little bit further. And so I have some amendments to try and let's go ahead and jumpstart on this RVA Green 2050 plan. We know what people are passionate about. We have some data-driven, opportunities here. I think everyone knows about the heat island. So I have an amendment in to create a full-time forester position. That individual would be in DPW, Public Works, oversee the creation of the Urban Forestry Master Plan, which we got funding for in ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act. And that person would bring a expertise in forestry, but also community engagement and management. So we want them shepherding that master plan, and then being here when it's implemented and making sure we're interacting with all of our great community organizations, because trees are important on so many different levels. So I feel confident about that one. That's going to get through. And then as part of that, what we need is an advisory group that's going to, once we get this person hired, we want to have an advisory group to inform the master planning process and to support this person. So all that will be coming. Nothing ever comes as fast as anyone wants when you're talking about government, but I feel like the path is laid for that, and it's going to happen. When it comes to another sustainability person, I think they've had some open positions there, got good commitments from administration that, after the transition to the new department, those positions will be filled. Also in our capital improvements budget, so just talking about operational things at that moment, now we're talking about things that would be built or things that we buy. So Green Fleet, that's something that's called out in the RVA 2050 plan. We have a lot of police vehicles that need to be purchased, and we need to be purchasing electric and hybrid vehicles. And I understand, and I believe there are supply chain issues, but we don't need to order 97 new vehicles based on fossil fuel. So I'm going to continue pushing on that. I think we can see some progress there. It's never going to be the whole progress we want in any one budget, but I believe progress is possible. I'm continuing to push on it. And then another avenue that I think would have, profound impacts is dedicating some of our planning money. There's a new planning category, $10 million for capital projects, pre-planning almost. And so of that 10 million, I have a text amendment saying 20% of that should be for green, specifically green items of these capital projects, green planning, green roofs, et cetera. So like, if I don't want to hear that there's no money in the project, because we're going to say upfront, you have this money and it can't be used for anything else. Had a good conversation with administration where they thought there was also the opportunity to say within our maintenance funds, maybe have also a percentage that is dedicated towards, energy efficiency. And, you get this, when you have the cost savings, it just keeps replenishing itself. So we are making progress. Appreciate everyone who's called in about budget amendments or about the budget process. Keep speaking up. Folks need to hear from you. If there's anyone from Scott's Addition, we also spent a lot of time in our meeting with the CAO today discussing the real need to get the VHB plan for Scott's Addition. They did an analysis on safety concerns and transportation, lighting, sidewalks, et cetera. We've got to put dollars towards implementing some of those priorities. So Sven is going to put in the link all of the budget discussions that we've had so far. I just wanted to highlight a few that were relevant to our discussion tonight. And let's see, it's 7:17. Sven, would you like to give a 2-minute update on ranked choice voting, and then we will close it out with questions?
Thanks, Catherine. I think that would be a record if I could be kept to 2 minutes on ranked choice, but I will do my best. So for those that have been following it, and for those that are still with us at 7:18 on a Wednesday, it's quite likely that you have been. Councilor Jordan has been leading the charge on bringing ranked choice to the city of Richmond for city council elections. We've been working on this for the better part of a year now, in collaboration with community partners and stakeholder organizations like the Richmond Crusade for Voters, the League of Women Voters, civic associations, residents across the city that feel passionately about making this happen. And we are now well on our way towards council actually considering ranked choice. And that was kickstarted by Councilwoman Jordan introducing the ordinance to council last Monday, along with Councilors Lynch and Addison, co-patrons on the paper. And the paper was referred to the Governmental Operations Committee, a committee which Councilor Jordan sits on, for discussion and deliberation this coming Wednesday next week at 2 o'clock. And that'll be both in person and virtual if you're interested in attending, giving testimony, or just hearing more about that discussion. And I'll drop that information in the chat as well. I think the piece to highlight here is that as we move forward in the process, we want to be having conversations with not just every second district resident, but folks across the city to ensure that as council deliberates on ranked choice, folks understand what it is that we are talking about. And then certainly if we're to move forward with adoption and implementation, that we are incredibly deliberate about reaching every single community, every potential voter before 2024 on that issue. If you would like to make your support for ranked choice known, or if you have questions, certainly reach out to us. And again, there's going to be that opportunity both to provide feedback and ask questions next Wednesday at the Governmental Operations Committee meeting. And I'm going to also drop some general informational resources in the chat as well. Was that 2 minutes, Catherine? I don't know.
I think it was 3, but
Close enough. The jury is right. It was 5 minutes before. So.
Yeah, no, that was great. Okay, well, I really appreciate everyone who presented. Anyone have a question, just a general district question before we close out?
And I'll do what we normally do, which is now that we are at this late of an hour, I think we've rid ourselves of Zoom owners. So I'm going to allow folks to unmute themselves as well.
You also are welcome to just email us directly with your follow-up questions. And please do let the mayor's office and my colleagues know how you feel about the budget. Decisions are being made Probably by Friday, we want to have heard from everybody. Anna, I see that you have a question.
Yes, regarding your forestry plan. We plant tons and tons of trees and we put water bags. However, no water ever gets in those bags, and many of those trees don't make it. So I'm hoping a budget that you put a big push to water these trees. Right now, I have a lot of empty tree wells on Gray Street that I love to plant trees. I have no water source, and I would love for that to become part of the program when you're planting trees.
Thank you, 100%. We've got to stop building buildings we don't take care of and planting trees that we don't water and they just die. And
Right.
part of that issue, as I understand it, is the contracts we've had with landscaping firms where it's cheaper for the landscaping firm to let the tree die and then come back and plant another one at the end than for them to come and water it throughout the year where it's guaranteed that this tree is supposed to live. So we've got to do a lot better with how we manage our trees after they're planted. And part of that is making sure we're planting the right trees that do not need as much watering. Our climate has changed. So
Right.
we're hopeful that the new urban forestry master plan will really look at what trees can be successful in a city like ours. So thank you for bringing that point up 100%. It's so depressing when you see those dead trees in those totally cobweb covered gator bags.
And they go in the landfill.
Yeah, it's just.
And I
it's a mess.
talked to the arborist one time about recycling them, and she told me she didn't have the staff. So that's something we really should look at. I mean, it just breaks my heart every time I have to take one of those gator bags. And then
Yeah.
I put them in my basement, but
Well, be
I
careful
don't want
because
any
they
more in
are.
my basement.
Yeah, be careful with the gator bags because I have noticed that black widows seem to sure
Yeah,
love
yeah,
gator bags.
I clean them. I clean them. I wish the city would pick them up and clean them and use them again, or somebody use them again.
Mhm.
It really is a pet peeve of mine that
Yeah, well, thank you for that
Yeah, we're
comment.
not-
Anyone else have a question or comment?
And Anna, I'll just share that, like Catherine touched on, I think it's a symptom of the larger problem, right? And it's a very visible one. But there are so many great community organizations, neighborhood level organizations that are doing wonderful work to help supplement what is not enough resources on the city side right now to care for those trees after they're planted. So whether it be the West Grace Association, the FDA, the tree stewards, there are some wonderful community resources out there to help ensure that we're getting those trees planted and then cared for as well. And I'm happy to share some of those contacts.
Do you have any water sources, any companies that will come and water?
I think that's one of the major difficulties that they face. I know that's been a conversation with the FDA about whether they may be able to retain a contractor to be able to do some of that work. But right now it's more about the network of resident volunteers who go kind of above and beyond to help care for those trees.
Mhm. Thank you.
All right.
All right, well, 7:25 is approaching, and I just want to thank everyone for coming out for our district meeting. I know we touched on a lot of issues that have been on our minds. So if you know a neighbor who wasn't able to participate, this will be recorded and saved, and you can share it with them. I think everyone spoke so fast, they won't even have to play it back at the quicker speed. You might just be able to do it at regular speed. And yes, again, thank you to everyone who came by. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good evening.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.